Hello everyone, this is Robert from Adventure Books of Seattle, and here I am out in the Great Northwest again. I'm up in the Olympic National Forest today to shoot a special video. It took some preparation on this one, and I'm going to have to make this quick because this is what the video is about. Let me show you. I just made up a little storyboard here. Okay, now I don't know if you can read that, but I'll give you a few seconds. Okay, it says, covering all 60 of the Eric Ulis vanishing videos in 15 minutes or less by Robert Blevins. Okay, there you go. Now you got the basic story. Now I've written the subject of all 60 videos on these little index cards, and what I'm going to do real quick is read them off, and from 1 to 60, and I'm going to give my really short opinion or comment on all of them. Now these videos were available at YouTube, but were mysteriously taken down about a month and a half ago, and I thought we should address them all anyway. Okay, here we go. Number 1, how Cooper got to the Portland airport. Well, I'd say he got a ride, because if he took public transportation or a taxi or something like that, somebody would have figured that out by now. He would have been seen, so I say he got a ride. Okay, why Cooper wanted to jump near Seattle. Well, I'd say that's because he probably lived in the area. Okay, money find at Tina Bar. Yes, they found money at Tina Bar, $5,800, and nobody can agree on how it got there, but it's definitely off the flight path, at least 6 or 8 miles. So that is still unexplained. I have my own theories on it. Tina Bar money number 2. Okay, all right. Since he went to the trouble of doing a second video on the Tina Bar money, I'll give you my quick opinion on it. Since there's no actual way for the money to appear at Tina Bar by natural means, like washing down a river or something, and also the fact that they found more than one actual bundle of the cash in the same spot, I would say this points to a plant. Now, I don't think it was actually planted at that spot. I think Cooper put it inside of a bag and threw it into the river or somewhere nearby, and it ended up getting dredged or washed up to the spot it was found. Now, that's basically my opinion on it, and I think it was done after November 24th, 1976, when the statute of limitations was going to run out on Cooper, but the FBI, in their sneaky little way, went down to Portland and got a friendly federal judge to sign a John Doe warrant, enabling the FBI to continue looking for Cooper forever, which must have been a very big bummer for him. Okay, number 5. Flight path search area. As far as I'm concerned, the flight path and the search area they initially looked at was correct. Okay. Dredge theory and the flight path. What this one addressed was it possible that the flight path was actually far west of where the FBI and Paul Soderlund from Northwest Airlines and all those other brain boys said, and all the radar information said, and I'm not going for it. I think the flight path is correct as presented by the FBI. Number 7, familiarity with Boeing 727 and possible Boeing connection. Well, Cooper was pretty familiar with how an airplane works, but he wasn't that familiar, I don't think, with the 727, although he seemed to know where the oxygen was, because he told Tina Mucklow that, the stewardess Tina Mucklow, when she suggested that he might need oxygen, once he opened that back door, he said, well, if I need it, I know where it is and I'll get it. Well, how do you know that? Airlines keep it in all kinds of different places depending on the airline, okay? So maybe he did work for Northwest Airlines. Okay, number 8, the tie and evidence from it. Okay, there's a lot of discussion about the tie and all the particles on it. It's been analyzed to death, and here's the bottom line. The tie, you cannot establish a chain of evidence on it. Now, Cooper took back every bit of evidence that he was going to leave behind. He tried not to leave anything. He left a couple of things, but throwing the tie over the seat casually like that, when he had already retrieved all the notes he wrote and things like that, tells me that probably the tie did not belong to him in the first place and it was borrowed, or he got it out of a thrift store. Number 9, evidence found on jet. Well, they found some leftover parachutes, maybe 6 fingerprints that possibly might belong to the hijacker. A hair, but the most important thing they found was the cigarette butts that he smoked, which they could have gotten really good DNA off of today, but the FBI, and in their intelligent way, lost all the cigarette butts over the years. Number 10, subjective evidence, phrases that make no sense. I'm not really sure what this means. Maybe it was when Cooper said he wanted negotiable American currency. And some people have said, well, that makes him Canadian. Well, maybe it does, and maybe he was just trying to make sure they didn't pay him with a brick of gold, okay, or a cashier's check. Here we go. Number 11, how we can solve mystery. Well, we can solve mystery by cooperating with the public and doing public events that bring the public together to talk about the case, because after so many years, almost 50 years, that's probably the only way you're ever going to find out who did it, okay? Number 12, analyzing suspects. Excuse me. Analyzing suspects. Well, there's been quite a few. The FBI has investigated over 1,000 people, and some suspects have been eliminated, but this is a really ambiguous kind of video that he did here. It's hard to explain. Number 13, role of the citizen sleuths. These are the guys like Tom Kay, Carol Abernaskus, I hope I pronounced that right, and Alan Stone, 3 people who formed citizensleuths.com and did some very good work on the hijacking, and I strongly urge you to visit their website at citizensleuths.com. Excuse me, I have to take a drink of water. All this talking's killing me. Thank you. Okay. Blank card. Okay. Number 14. How the FBI dropped the ball. Well, I don't know. I would say that the moment the FBI dropped the ball, if you really want to know, was when Tina Mucklow was out there getting the parachutes. The rest of the crew and the stewardesses maybe should have. Nah, I don't think that would have worked. I'm not really sure. Well, they didn't find Cooper, so I guess you could say they dropped the ball. Okay. Number 15, Life in America in 1971. Excuse me, but what does Eric know, a much younger guy than me, know about life in 1971? Okay, I was a high school sophomore in 1971. I can tell you it was about Detroit fast cars and a lot of drugs, a lot of partying, and motels still had swimming pools. The insurance companies hadn't screwed them out of that yet, and it was different. Vietnam, don't forget about Vietnam. Number 16, why Cooper waited until last minute to buy a ticket to Seattle. Well, that's hard to say. Maybe he got to the airport late. Okay. Number 17, why Cooper demanded chutes instead of bringing his own chute. Well, that's pretty easy. I think they would have noticed him wearing a parachute coming onto the airplane, and with all the hijackings that had been going on over the last couple of years, somebody would have noticed. He wouldn't even have made it onto the jet. Why hijack a jet in the Pacific Northwest? Well, why not? What's wrong with the Pacific Northwest? Excuse me, they were hijacking planes all over the world in the late 60s and early 70s, so why not here? What's wrong with us? Number 19, Sheridan Peterson is the skyjacker. Sheridan Peterson is a very nice guy, an expert parachutist who lives in California, and at the time of the hijacking, he was actually in Tibet, okay? So you can eliminate him. What happened to the money? Now, I'm assuming this means, why wasn't the money ever found? Well, that's really easy, because within 3 to 6 months after the hijacking occurred, nobody was actually looking for it. And if you don't believe that, go to Wikipedia, go to the D.B. Cooper entry, and go scrolling down to the bottom. And you're going to see a radio interview there by FBI agent Larry Carr, and he's going to admit to you that yes, all the banks quit looking, everybody quit looking. Why? Because the page of bills, the list of bills was 34 pages long, 10,000 different non-sequential numbers. It was an impossible task. Okay. Boy. Number 21, how FBI can help solve case today. They could release all the files, that would help. 22, discuss Richard Floyd McCoy as the hijacker. McCoy was actually my favorite suspect for a lot of years. I really thought he might be the guy, but it turns out he was actually eating Thanksgiving dinner on the night of the Cooper thing. Anyway, 23, discuss Sage Radar. Sage Radar is what they used to use to track possible incoming threats to the United States, and it was a very good system and it worked very well. And if people think that Sage Radar was off by miles and that's why the jet was actually west of the flight path, you can forget about it. They knew exactly where that jet was going the whole time, plus it was being tracked by military jets. Number 24, decision to close case. I was told by the Seattle FBI the reason they did this was because they had looked at everything and they just weren't getting anywhere, and they no longer had the money to spend on a 40-plus-year-old case. Makes sense. Number 25, the placard. They found a placard down near that may have come off the aircraft, the hijacked aircraft, and it was found by a hunter not too far from Castle Rock, Washington. And there is some doubt whether the placard that was found is actually from that particular jet. So Boeing spokesperson in one of the articles about the placard says they fall off all the time, and we found them on the runway. Well, okay, but it does verify the flight path, by the way, if you believe the placard is the one. 26, Earl Cossey. The guy who packed the parachutes, and there's a lot of controversy about him, and the poor guy was actually beaten to death in his own home in March of 2013, and the King County Sheriff's Office still hasn't solved the case. And this is an organization that just last week all the top guys are quitting, and that the FBI, or the Justice Department in Seattle, said a few years ago that the King County Sheriff's Office was very poor at solving major cases. Maybe they should get off their asses and find out who killed this guy, Earl Cossey, who was a very nice person, by the way, lived in Woodinville, Washington, former science teacher at a junior high. Number 27, D.B. Cooper mistakes that might help solve the case. Well, if he'd made a lot of mistakes, they would have solved it already. 28, psychological profile of Cooper. Well, I don't think you can do a real psychological profile on him based on a couple of the two people who talked to him. It's pretty tough. I wouldn't try. Only a real shrink could do that by examining all the files and evidence. Okay, number 29, Robert Rackstraw. Poor Rackstraw. This guy I actually feel sorry for. He was hounded quite a bit by people who thought he was the hijacker. Now, I don't believe Rackstraw was the guy, but he was. They chased him around on TV and everything else, and then he finally died just this year. And I always thought that was unfair. He definitely wasn't the guy. He had blue eyes. He was the wrong height. You could name a lot of other things. Stewardess Tina Mucklow was shown his picture from around the time of the hijacking, also a video that was taken within a couple of years of the hijacking, and she said definitely Rackstraw is not the guy. Okay, case closed. Number 30, FBI holding back evidence? Yes. How Cooper, they always do that, by the way, in major cases. How Cooper moved around unnoticed. I'm not really sure what that means. I don't know if I actually watched this video. How Cooper moved around unnoticed. If you're talking about the airport, well, have you ever been inside of a major airport and walked around? You noticed everybody who was there? No, I never did. Matches used to light cigarettes. Well, they were Sky Chef matches. Now, those were provided on board the plane, and he probably just picked them up out of an ashtray. Tie and particles. They're talking about the tie that was left behind and the particles. This has been done. Go check out citizensleuths.com. You'll find everything you want to know. Oh, I'm not even going to address this one. Okay. Wait a minute. Duplicate. Okay. Number 35, witness descriptions. Okay, witness descriptions are notoriously unreliable. They varied. All three stewardesses gave 3 different combinations from the FBI's facial identification catalog. Go figure. Okay. This is harder than I thought. And I'm only just over halfway through these. I gotta hurry. 36. Cover up by the FBI? No. Okay, ridiculous. 37. Discuss incorrect info on Cooper. Well, you got a couple hours because you're going to need it. Okay. Money find at Tina Bar. This has already been done. We're duplicating now. Money find at Tina Bar. Well, okay. I don't believe the money was deposited there or washed up there or anything like that during the day of the hijacking. I think it came years later due to the condition of the money. Citizen Sleuths believes the same thing. My voice is wearing out. I'm choking to death here. Got up this morning with the sniffles. Okay. Letters to newspapers. Okay, there were several letters mailed to newspapers after the hijacking. Do I personally believe that any of them were actually written by Cooper? No. Okay. And if you talk to cops, they'll tell you that they get this kind of stuff all the time from copycats. Number 40, Cooper's selection of the 727. Well, I'd say that's because it had an air stairs door you could jump out the back on. Okay. Cooper ability to evade capture. I don't know if you probably haven't been to the area where Cooper actually jumped. Okay, I have. I've been there many times. I've hiked, fished, camped up in that area a lot of times. And back in the 70s, it would be no big deal to, if you landed there, to find your way out. There's plenty of Forest Service roads, some paved roads. You could get out of there. It wouldn't be that hard. 42, fingerprint and DNA evidence. Well, the FBI says they have maybe 5 or 6 fingerprints that might fit the hijackers, but they haven't been able to get a person and the fingerprints in the same page. Now, they've probably run these things through NCIC several times and they haven't gotten any matches. Otherwise, they would have solved the case. What does this mean? It means Cooper probably didn't have a police record. Okay. Number 43. Where does Cooper case go from here? Well, at this point, it's become more of a public thing than an actual criminal case that you're investigating, because of the number of years that have gone by. So, like Bigfoot, I would say bring the public in on it and hold events. We do this. Now this is not a Cooper campout, but I've had about 3 or 4 previous ones where I invited people and they showed up and we do this big campout and show movies on the big screen, and some of them D.B. Cooper related, and just partied and had fun and talked about the case. And if you get a chance to come to one of those, make sure you do. What will happen in 2021, the 50th anniversary of the hijacking? Well, I'll tell you one thing. That's the year they're going to release the first dramatic feature film on D.B. Cooper. And it's being worked on by 2 production companies in cooperation. And one of the producers is a fairly major Hollywood star, young guy from Seattle originally. And he's one of the main producers. And I've met him and worked with him some. And he's just a nice guy all around. And I trust him because every one of his movies has made money. Okay. Number 45, questions, findings, and assumptions in the case. Well, okay, that's pretty large ground. Okay, there's a lot of questions. There's been thousands of findings and a ton of assumptions in the case, so we can assume this video was correct. 46, quest to discover exact time Cooper jumped. You're never going to be able to narrow it down to an exact second or exact minute because of delays in communication between Northwest Airlines and air traffic control, the crew itself. You can get it down to a minute or 2, but since the jet was going, about 3 miles a minute, if you can only narrow it down to a 2-minute window when Cooper actually jumped, and assuming there's only like a 1 mile in each direction drift from around 10,000 feet, that's what I've been told by parachute experts. This means that in 6 miles this way, 2 miles in that direction, that's a search area of at least 12 square miles. Now I can tell you this, I've been with search and rescue, okay, in the past when I was younger, and when you have to go out there into this kind of stuff and search an area of 1 square mile, not 12, but just 1, you need a lot of people and some luck, because you're going to have a hard time. Number 47, logistics involved in the hijacking. Logistics, what does that mean? Okay, we'll skip that one. Number 48, what folks have sent Eric Ulis? Well, I bet some of them sent him kind of angry messages, since he is the guy who agreed to host the biggest Cooper celebration that was ever going to be done this year, November 2019, down at Mississippi Studios in Portland, and he was offered the hosting job, okay? And he was going to combine his convention with a big Cooper party at this Mississippi Studios. It's a combination bar, recording studio with a great big venue that hold about 300 people. As soon as he got the job, he stopped communicating with people, and the next thing I heard, the whole thing was off. And that's too bad, because some very famous people were going to show up, and they were not happy with Eric. Neither am I, by the way. 50, discusses name Dan Cooper. Okay, I don't know. He maybe picked it out of the Dan Cooper comic book, maybe he picked it out of the phone book. Nobody really knows. 51, boat tour to Tina Bar. Boat tour to Tina Bar was Eric's video inviting people to pay money, like I think it was around $50, and they take a boat and go up to Columbia, near the area where the money was found. I'm okay with that. I actually supported it first, but the problem is if you get there, you're going to be kind of disappointed, because the spot where the money was actually buried, it's actually part of the river now, so you're not going to really see anything. And he raised the price anyway. Impressions of Tina Bar after visit. Well, it's a sandbar with some trees and belongs to the Fazio brothers. What do you want? Okay. Discusses Bachelor Island and Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge. Now, this is Eric's attempt to move the flight path west of where it actually was, and then go. He wants to go and search Bachelor Island and Ridgefield National Wildlife Refuge, which is on the Columbia River. Of course, there will be money involved. You know, I think this is nothing but a marketing hype on his part. Discrepancies in the Cooper case. Yes, there's quite a few. Roadmap to IDing Cooper. Bring in the public. Hold public events. Make them fun. Okay, that's how you're going to solve the case. The case has been discussed endlessly for more than 10 years by the same people, and they haven't gotten any further than they were 10 years ago. Sheridan Peterson, again, as the hijacker. Again, I think we already covered him. He was in Tibet. Eric visits Sky Sports in Issaquah. Yeah, I know. I saw that video. Yeah, and he also showed us that, yes, it's no longer there. It's actually the parking lot for a Costco. Big deal. Okay, he could have just told us that. Did Tina Bar money arrive by natural means? Like, did it wash down the river or something? No. 59, red herrings in the case. I think there's only one major red herring, and that's probably the Tina Bar money. And the reason is because we know the money was in a condition so it wasn't sitting out there for 9 years between the time of the hijacking and the time it was found. It was 9 years. Now, citizen sleuths with some very good equipment, some smart people, figured that the money had not been out there that many years. So how did it get there if it didn't drop out of the sky or wash down the river? Because it couldn't have, either way. Well, maybe after November 24th, 1976, when it was all over the Northwest News that the statute of limitations had been bypassed and the FBI got their John Doe warrant, that might have been the moment that Cooper decided to do something. You know, because can you imagine that? He's going to be free and clear the next day, and then all over the TV news, and you see this thing, FBI gets John Doe warrant. Okay, well, he's done. You know, now they can just keep renewing the warrant and look for him for life. It must have been crushing to him. Number 60, finally, this is the last one. Conspiracy theories. I think we already covered this earlier. I don't believe in conspiracy theories in the Cooper case. I believe it's a straightforward criminal case. The guy wanted money. He got extremely lucky. Who knows? Nobody's found his body, the briefcase, any of the money out there in the woods. You know, I have to assume that he got away with it, and I think he did get away with it, and there's probably some evidence that he did get away with it. And one of the actual things that points to that is the money found at Tina Bar, because if it didn't arrive by natural means, if there's no way for it to actually wash up from the flight path and get there, then how did it get there? That means a human being was involved. Now, there's a guy out there, one of the citizen sleuths has said, he won't say a human being was involved, but he does think human intervention was somehow involved, and so do I. Excuse me. Okay, that's all 60 of the videos, and I'd like to thank you for watching, and if you have any questions about this video, or you want to discuss the Cooper case, or you want to go on one of our next D.B. Cooper campouts, then just contact me at Robert at adventurebookofseattle@gmail.com. That's adventurebookofseattle, one big word, @gmail.com. And I'd like to thank you all for watching.